Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy y'all, Red O'Loughlin here on my third show today, back to back, called Talking Heads, and we're continuing the series on Aging Sucks, my book that I am in the process of writing that will be out before June. Let's just go ahead and jump into our first slide and get the show started today. Let's go. There we go. Okay. Aging Sucks, that's the name of my book. I do not have a good subtitle yet. I'm still working on it. I got a couple of comparisons going on, different social media channels, and I'll be doing some cover comparisons also. Today we're on live, Amazon Fire, E360 TV, YouTube, Android TV, and social media, and many, many more. I think 11 direct platforms to go out instantly. Plus, I have my own Facebook channel that's a simulcast. And for everything that I do here on this show, Talking Heads, is for awareness and education. My website, redolaughlin.com, red, just like it says, R-E-D, O'Loughlin, O-L-A-U-G-H. L-I-N, redolaughlin.com. My social media sites, my email, my phone number, my books, my blogs, my videos, lots and lots and lots of things are on that website. Now, if you want to go back and find any of the archived programs from my shows, Talking Heads, The Wise Ones, or the Corner Bookstore, and other ones that I've been on, you can go to YouTube on USA Global TV and find it. Plus the live shows are there. You can look at which ones in advance, sign up for one, and you'll be alerted. My basic function that I do, that I love, I'm passionate about, is root cause analysis. You find out what's wrong and you fix it. I look at the cellular level in the body, and I look at it from a biological, from a chemical, more chemical than biological, but it's hard sometimes to isolate one from the other. But I take that information and I try to give a human understanding. Let's translate it so that decisions can be made. Here's what you have. If this is your issue, why don't you ask your doctor about it? Don't take action on your own, because again, we're awareness and education. But from the education and awareness perspective, talk to an expert who has the in-depth knowledge to say, yeah, maybe, or, well, let's wait a little while and see. But anyway, I focus on what helps and what makes things worse. So you have both ends of the equation. I consider myself an author nowadays of decision support manuals for aging, for longevity. So let's just jump into a little bit more about me. I consider myself a researcher. I've never been in the medical or pharmaceutical fields. My first degree is in chemistry. I have 5 academic degrees, 7 professional certifications, primarily in the areas of quality assurance, reliability, engineering, and logistics engineering. Spent over 30 years in the military, retired as Navy captain, flew for 16 years, naval aviator, been to over 5 countries, and got invitations to the Vietnam and Bosnia wars, beginning and end of my career. I specialize in cause and effect relationships. That's what I look at. When I was working for Halliburton, that's exactly what my job was in failure modes, effects analysis, reliability engineering, and things. Why did that fail? Okay, what can we do to fix it? Well, take that same mindset and let's apply it to the body. So if we can treat the cause of a problem, we probably stand a pretty decent chance of actually fixing something. But fixing symptoms may make you feel better, look good, but is the cause still creating a problem? Last year, my wife and I were married 57 years, a couple kids, 3 grandkids, and our first great grandson turned 2 years old this past week. Best-selling author of 7 books, independent publisher. I published over 50 books for other authors. Distinguished Toastmaster, writer. I love to write. I haven't done that in a while. It's one of those habits I need to get back into here in 2026. But I have over 1,000 articles, original content articles on LinkedIn. International TV host here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm the #1 most valuable player, team player here on the network, and #3 host for 2025. Okay, just about ready to get going here. Does the Aging Sucks? That's my book. That's just I got a dozen covers made, and I'm not real proud of any of them. Don't even want to put them out to do a comparison. But that's one at least to say, I have a book coming, and it's also going to include an area of disease along with health and aging. My longevity book right now is the one that I'm updating. Information is for educational purposes only. Disclaimer. Today and all of my previous talking head presentations, they're education, information, awareness. Do not take action. Talk to somebody who's an expert. But take the information that I have, apply it to your situation, and say, "Hey, doc," and get really good information, because sometimes there's things about your situation, the meds that you're currently taking, other aspects that you just can't just willy-nilly take something or do something or change without having some level of expert back you up. Any of the compounds that I reference here on the show, so let's say I talk about a particular one, it's strictly in a research context. That's what the literature says. But again, consult qualified professional medical attention about your health. Okay. Next book I talked about already, Aging Sucks. I expect to release by summer 2026. Hopefully sooner. And in addition, since I'm talking at the 30,000 foot level primarily in my books, trying to keep everything at a macro perspective, when you get down to ground zero at the bottom floor, what do you actually do in order to counter some of these things? Well, that's my webinar series coming out probably in March. That's what I'm planning right now. And I'll be talking about aging and health and disease a little bit more deeper into heart health and brain health and in pain and options. So that's something I have coming up here very shortly. Aging doesn't have to suck. We have many, many options. But for most of us, we don't know what we don't know because we've never been taught. And therefore, like Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. However, if you're like Alice from Alice in Wonderland, when Alice is 10 foot tall, Alice isn't going to help you at all. If you remember that particular song from Grace Slick, I think it was a long time ago. Some think aging equals disease because we see so many people elderly that actually are in some level of a disease or multiple diseases. And then all of a sudden you die probably because of the disease. But most of us don't know why or even how we age. We've never been taught. Lots of data out there, but it's never been a subject that we get to understand why. Here is this influencer, here's this supplement, here's this disease prevention medicine, here's a theory, but they don't get into why and how so that you have a better context of what's going on. And that's where I live and thrive. That's where I want to help you. Why not live longer and enjoy life? I think you can. There's everything I see doesn't preclude that from happening. I was a chemistry major, math and physics minor in my first degree in college. I loved math. I loved all sorts of stuff. But I wanted to take statistics. It wasn't in the math department. I didn't get credit for it as part of my minor. It was in sociology department. And I went there and I took it, and it's like I was the first person in 30 years to take statistics as an elective. They thought I was crazy. Anyway, I love statistics. I taught college level for 3 years, that field. I sat down and had a 15-minute conversation when I was working on a PhD, and I got 9 hours of stat waived literally in 15 minutes just having a conversation. But let's talk a little bit about some of the stats. In the USA, deaths, 70% of them are due to disease, 23% natural causes. That's not a real good ratio there. And the other 7% are accidents and violence. So you're looking at 1 in 4, maybe 1 in 5. They don't wake up. They die in their sleep. We kind of think that's the way most of us want to go. We don't want to suffer. but that doesn't mean you can't have a heart attack or a stroke in your sleep and die that way. We're talking about dying in your sleep from old age. So nearly 8 in 10 face some kind of disease or accidents or violence or something. That's not encouraging for living a happily ever after. And of that particular group, 6 in that 10 will probably have a chronic disease of some sort, and 4 out of that group there will probably have multiple diseases. We saw that with a lot of the deaths in COVID. A lot of people had multiple problems, obesity and diabetes and heart issues and respiratory issues and all sorts of things. But when you get right down to it, at the end of our life, when the final plug is pulled, about 13% of us have full physical mobility at death. We're not sitting there being pushed by somebody or on a cane or whatever. We actually have a fairly decent quality of life. As far as accidents and violence goes, that's mostly for under 40 years of age. So it really doesn't affect too many of the elderly. Now, when I start looking at what really and truly is the number one killer in the United States, heart disease. But cancer is such a close second. But now they tell you that accidents, et cetera, is the number 3 cause. But for elderly, the biggest issue, the biggest risk is falls and poisoning. Now, whether that's accidental poisoning, hard to say, but that's what we really have. You start getting over 60, 70, 80 years of age, falls, big deal. Poisoning, whether it's prescription meds or other things, so many things can happen. However, the real number 3 cause, and it's not listed in the diseases because it's not a disease, is preventable hospital errors. With everything going on, they don't diagnose you correct. They give you the wrong medicine. They don't treat you fast enough. So the number 1 cause is heart disease, number 2, cancer, number 3, preventable hospital errors. So you have a hospital, not the best place to be. Almost all diseases start out the same, but then things change depending on which organ they get in. So if I look a little bit about what are some of the general pathways of disease, chronic inflammation, we've talked about that so many times. Free radical damage causes mutations at your DNA, your immune system. It does a pretty good job of fixing things. But if your immunity is challenged, maybe it doesn't get everything fixed in time. So now you end up in an area of oxidative stress. But if we're keeping within the terminology of the medical industry, it's called genome instability. Our immune system doesn't have the ability to repair the DNA mutations because they're happening so quickly. So our DNA now is cranking out errors and omissions that we would never be doing normally, but it's just part of that disease process. So we're allowing a disease to grow in us. Dysbiosis. Basically, your gut is out of balance. You get too many bad guys, not enough good guys. And your gut is such an important part of your body because it literally is your second brain, and there's so many things going on communicating back and forth. You have a gut problem, you probably have a brain problem, and vice versa. Sometimes your brain's not functioning well, and your gut's going to not feel as 100% either. And before we start getting into the individual diseases and their pathways, the final one for just general disease is metabolic reprogramming. The cells, they have a purpose in life, a function. That's their Bible. That's what they go by. But all of a sudden, something happens to the program, and they start consuming more sugar, or they start converting that sugar into lactic acid, something they don't typically do in that area. And they create an environment that they're actually making more cells, starting to almost sound like a little bit like cancer. You just got more things going on than you need to have. So that metabolic reprogramming starts using up nutrients, but they're using them differently. So you end up the cell creates its ability to survive and grow rapidly, which is not the normal mode for a cell. And what happens next is determined by the body part. If it's the brain, the liver, the kidney, the lungs, skin, bone marrow, depending where this disease is transitioning, that now has its own set of parameters. We're going to talk primarily today about cancer. I'm going to plan on talking about dementia next week. But you have tumors, you have cancers all over the body. Dementia, there's so many different kinds of those, but but each of them have their own pathways. So let's talk a little bit about cancer. Uh, Again, sticking with the official medical language, they call it sustaining proliferative signaling. Uh, it just means the cancer cells don't stop growing. Uh, they grow and grow and grow. Just nothing stops them. Another one's evading growth suppressors. In other words, there's no breaks. They grow and there's nothing there to stop them. We'll get a little bit more detail there. Resisting cell death. Cells have a built-in program that says you get this far in, you have nothing left, you die. It's called apoptosis. Uh, but in a cancer cell, that's programmed out. Somebody came in and cut that part of the program off. They don't die. And I'll get into the reason here very, very quickly. So you have a cell that's growing fast, it evades anything trying to stop it, and it won't die. That's not a good situation. Then you have another aspect of cancer, another pathway, is tumor promoting inflammation. Those, the immune system is there to stop DNA mutations and all that kind of stuff. So you've got these things growing real rapidly. It's almost impossible to slow it down. The immune system gets just fully exhausted. It can't keep up with everything that's out there. So normally it would be able to control everything, but for whatever reason, the immune system is challenged and it just can't keep up. And so the tumor grows some more. A tumor cell is basically a wound that never heals. They scavenge fuel from the body. They create their own blood supply. In some cases, that's good. Some cases, it's not. But for a tumor, you don't want to have its own blood supply. I was at my cardiologist this morning. We're talking about, in my heart, I have a couple blockages, but my heart actually grew blood vessels around my heart downstream from the blockage so that I don't need a stent. I don't need anything. It's just the way my body is built. I have the same thing in my knees. Thanks to Agent Orange for my heart, I'm guessing Agent Orange for my knees. But down there, I'm having blockages, but my body is building new blood vessels around the blockages so that I'm not in need of having a problem. But the same thing, a tumor is almost like an alien life form. And it says, okay, we need more blood. Let's just go create some new blood vessels. And it does. It just goes out and creates them. And then in this big mess of new blood vessels and everything and inflammation going on, it hides very, very nicely from the immune system. It can't tell the bad guy from the good guy. You got this thing growing over there. It's got its own blood supply, but it can't see an alien because all it sees is normal, healthy stuff. Another pathway is called ending replicative immortality. Cancer cells live forever, almost like herpes they used to talk about. But the reason being is that they have an enzyme called telomerase. And telomerase never lets a cell die. At the end of your DNA that winds around, at the bottom, you have a caplet like on your shoelace, a little plastic thing. And every time that cell replicates into two, you lose a little bit of that telomere. It's that caplet at the bottom of your DNA. The cell split up. There we go. Got a message. Um, your telomere is controlling how long that cell, that DNA, that cell lives. And so they create an enzyme called telomerase, which basically says, don't worry about it, just keep growing. And the cells don't die. It's magic, sort of. Senescent cells, zombie cells. Again, cells that typically would be dead because of the apoptosis program, they don't. They don't die. They hang on forever. And they create havoc. They release toxins in the body. They use energy. They're just basically bad guys to have hanging around in the body. You don't need them. Another pathway is called deregulating cellular metabolism. The cell changes its function. It's like somebody comes over and uses a magic spell. You are no longer allowed to do this. Well, in the process of doing that, they grow new cells rapidly. We call it kind of a rogue or a selfish aspect of that cell. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. It actually has a new identity, a new function in your body. Avoiding immune destruction. I call this a cloaking device. It's hiding. It has the ability to be right there in plain sight, but the immune system can't see it. and avoiding accessing vasculature. I talked about a minute ago, creating new blood vessels. Well, this ensures the survivability of the cancer cell. That life form needs blood supply, and this is the way they go out and get it. So it creates new blood vessels, it demands nutrients, it basically starts having its own set of rules in your body that initially it's not telling anybody about. You don't even know you have it, but it's operating and working. Another one is called activating, invading, and metastasis. In other words, okay, the cancer's got a pretty good hold on. You don't even know you have it. Now all of a sudden it's starting to bump up against some other tissue, reaches out, grabs a hold of it, and it starts. Okay, I got to find a new home. And then sometimes some of these things end up in the bloodstream and they go somewhere else, and they find a home somewhere else in the body, not right next to your existing tumor, but maybe if you have a lung, it may end in the brain, it may end up in the bones, it may end up anywhere in the body, depending. Some cancers have a tendency that if you have this kind of cancer, the next one you're going to get is a different place because that's the general program of that cancer. So it invades surrounding tissues and creates new tumor colonies. I talked about the chameleon effect again. This one's called unlocking the phenotypic plasticity, and that is where the cells can change purpose due to the environment. In other words, let's say you're getting chemotherapy, the cancer cells, don't want that, it'll kill me, and so they basically change their ability and they adapt, like the Marine Corps, they adapt to whatever the situation is so they can continue to live. And so it's just not one. That's why sometimes you end up with 2 or 3 different kinds of chemo drugs. You end up with radiation on top of that. You end up with immunotherapy on top of that. You attack a cancer in many, many ways. And so lots of things are going on, and one fix doesn't necessarily do it. Genome instability and mutation. Your DNA is consistently producing errors, kind of like we talked about earlier. But they're producing them so fast that they just allow the tumors to grow wild. And then all of a sudden, now you can actually start feeling something, and it can be measured. But when that thing starts out at the cellular level, you don't know you have a tumor growing. And in fact, that tumor can grow probably for years and years, and you don't even know it's there. You don't even have the equipment in many cases to find out. It's not until you actually get some test. Oh, let's take a deeper look at this. And so these things grow, and we're not doing what we need to do, our own due diligence to keep up with ourselves. So non-mutational epigenetic reprogramming, interesting topic. Non-mutational means it's fixed. There's no errors. Epigenetic. Okay, we're talking genetics. These are chemical tags on our DNA, and they basically turn on or off a gene. Now we talk about, I have a genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's. I have a genetic predisposition for colon cancer or breast cancer. Well, those switches can go on or off. And typically speaking, our daily choices, our diet, our exercise, our stress management, our sleep, quality of sleep, all of these lifestyle choices turn on and off. It's an epigenetic change so we want some turned on, we want some turned off. But when I look at non-mutational epigenetic reprogramming, the reprogramming is the one that becomes, it's fixed. I can change the genes because the purpose of the cell is being hidden from the immune system. Polymorphic microbiomes. Our gut microbiome supports cancer. I talked about earlier being a second brain. Well, if you get enough bad guys in the gut, that cancer is going to be assisted by the bad guys in the gut, just from an inflammatory perspective. It just, things just work so beautifully in there for such a bad thing to take over. But in the big scheme of things, general disease pathways are treatable. And we talk about the lifestyle choices, our choice of foods, our choice of stress management, our choice of being able to get quality sleep for a long enough period of time, our choice of exercises, our mental outlook, our mindset. Lots and lots of things are our lifestyle choices, our relationships with others, smoking, drinking, all sorts of things are our everyday lifestyle choices. So we can generally keep ourselves fairly healthy. Now, one of the tests I get every year is called a C-reactive protein. It's a protein our body makes when the inflammation levels gets high. It gets to a certain level, and that's kind of like a clue. Most of the time, mine is barely readable, or it's at such a low level, it's a non-issue. But it doesn't tell you where in the body. It just says your body is not a problem or a problem. So, if you're at a 3, probably not a problem. Point 0.3, absolutely no problem. 33, you have a problem. And that's kind of a hint to the doctor saying, maybe we ought to start looking at other places to find out what's going on. But it's not a typical test that you get from your doctor, but you can go down to most local laboratories and they'll give the test to you without a doctor's permission. It costs, just, price it out. It's not that expensive. But most of these things with cancer and a disease, they seem magic to the untrained. We don't even know we have a cancer, but it's growing in us. And then all of a sudden it's too late. They go in because now all of a sudden it's really creating havoc in our body. And we find out you have 6 months or a year to live. And they may be able to treat it. They may not be able to treat it. Sometimes we know we have something wrong. Sometimes we don't take action quick enough. But if you can treat something early enough on, you got a really good chance of stopping the whole thing. But when you're looking at a cancer and it's become, it's growing, and it's like that accelerator pedal on the gas that's starting to grow, and you're pushing more and more gas into the engine, and that thing is really wide open. It's hard to stop that end of cancer. It wants to take over your body, but your body has a finite life, and then all of a sudden it ends up taking over and it dies along with the body. So when you look at things, fast growing cells, there are many natural options. Just go to Google fast growing cells and take a look at what's out there. And these are part of just a natural helping your immune system, helping your health. We could go through a whole bunch of them, but let's not get into that level of detail right this moment. But fast growing cells, they happen all the time. I go into, in fact, I have a little doodad up here. It's a squamous cell carcinoma. Went to the doctor a week ago and they found something, took a biopsy, came back, said, this is that. Next week I'll have it taken out. But I also have a program I go through every about 10 years where I put this topical cream on, topical ointment, and it kills fast growing cells. It doesn't hurt the normal cells. And so that's a preventive of something that I do. I've been doing this since the 80s. Being a redhead, being a lot of sun, just a lot of things grow over time. But there are a lot of things you do have there. Zombie cells, we talked about that. There are things called natural senolytics that can actually go in there, target, and zap the zombie cells. So we have a lot of options there with those. We don't have to live with them. A lot of the tumors are very hungry. And the process where they grow new blood vessels is called angiogenesis. And there are natural angiogenetic inhibitors, things you find on the shelf or can order online easily. So that's another method of treatment. Now, all these things have medical prescription things. I'm not a prescription kind of guy. I'd prefer to tackle things knowing that the prescription medicine was designed from this natural plant or herb or whatever. And so I would prefer to go with a natural option anytime. A chameleon effect, in other words, are hiding from your immune system. There's a lot of good immunotherapy out there as an option where they're actually maybe using chemo and some other natural option in conjunction with that. But that seems to be fairly effective on a lot of things I've seen recently. That's getting a good 2 thumbs up on that one. Rogue travelers, these are the ones that create metabolic metastatic issues in the body. And again, there's a lot of natural inhibitors out there that will shut them down. So it's like you have a lot of things that can go wrong, a lot of things that are in different processes of growth cycle, but you do have some level of control. And that's what this presentation is about, awareness. You want to learn a little bit more, then maybe my book is the one to have, or somebody else's book. Lots of things out there. But look and learn and talk to somebody who knows more than I do, more than you do. Again, the medical options are typically prescription, surgery, radiation, immunotherapy. A lot of options are out there, and there's additional ones being developed all the time. I was at the cardiologist this morning, and across the hall, there's a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which is used for a number of different treatments. So like I say, a lot of natural options out there. I think personal opinion, and I'm in the very minor part of this thing, is that cancer is a metabolic disease, not a genetic disease. But in the United States, the standard of care we have is being treated as a genetic disease. However, if you treat it as a metabolic disease, the survival rates are immensely greater than the treatments as a genetic disease. My wife had a follow-up with her oncologist recently, and the PA that was treating her, asking questions, I asked him on the way out the door, I says, what are you aware of as cancer being a metabolic rather than a genetic? Had absolutely no idea. And I gave him a couple of short thoughts of mine on that. He says he's going to look it up. But again, the doctors and the other people in the medical professions, they have a very narrow view of things. They've been trained a certain way, and that's the way they treat things. If they end up on the jury deal and asking questions, legally and morally, they treated things the way it's supposed to be, because in their state of treatment, our standard of care, that's the way things go. So again, I would say if you're interested, you have cancer, your doctor doesn't know about metabolic versus genetic, there's a lot of things out there that can be found. They talk about starving cancer. Cancer is typically like sugar and glutamine. And almost 100 years ago, a lot of success was shutting cancer down by shutting off sugars. Stop eating sugar. Well, our bodies make glutamine. Cancers also love glutamine. Not all of them, but some cancers you can actually starve. But if you actually go into the depth of what does cancer really and truly like, well, it's actually more than just that. They like lactate. There's some specific fatty acids, some specific ketones, and acetate uridine. There are things that you can, if you shut down glutamine, you shut down sugar, the cancer is going to find a way. It's a really intelligent alien life form. It's going to find something to eat and something to live on. They adjust very, very quickly, especially when they got to find a new fuel supply. They can take, typically, they use your mitochondria's ATP, adenosine triphosphate. That's the energy that the cells produce. Well, they can actually cause a different way of creating ATP by using an aerobic fermentation process, not a typical one in the body, but it works. So, but we got to figure out a way. If you're eating well and you have good lifestyle choices and you're doing some additional things on the side, generally probably shouldn't have a problem. But if you're not seeing the doctor except once every 10 years, maybe that's a clue. Maybe that's part of the problem. So don't just take one thing. You have to look at the totality of whatever. So if I'm only eating blueberries and I ought to be eating kale or spinach in addition to that because of some other green tea, maybe I need to look at a wider spectrum. Maybe I'm only running in my exercise, but I'm 75 years of age and I'm more attuned, more at risk of falls. Maybe I need to work on my balance or my strength, my flexibility, can't get up off the floor. So look at the totality of what you're at in your lifestyle at that time and your health. But I'll look at covering other pathways in my book, Aging Sucks. So I'm definitely going to call it the hallmarks of disease, the hallmarks of aging, the hallmarks of health. But I want to look at the primary pathways for various diseases, because this is important. If you know that you might be predisposed to dementia, what can you be doing now that will help you offset that? Cardiovascular disease, stroke, very high leading causes of death. What can you do to slow it down, stop it, whatever? There are a lot of things you do. Stroke, vitamin E is an echo. There's 8 different molecules there. They found that one of those molecules, I think it's alpha tocotrienol, I think is the one, that if you have literally that much in your brain, it opens up blood vessels around a blockage and literally allows you to have a stroke but not have any side effects from it. Again, not well known, but there's a lot of documentation out there on it. And that might be one that if you're in that situation, maybe that's something you ought to be taking all the time. All 4 of the tocotrienols and all 4 of the tocopherols has vitamin E. Pathways for the brain disease, some are similar, some are different. And I plan on looking at that next week and going into some detail there. So my webinars hopefully going to start in March, ground level, ground zero options. What can I do as an individual? What can you do to help support the good lifestyle choices that you need to be making. Are there natural inhibitors for this, that, or whatever? We'll talk about a lot of those things. So if I'm talking about brain health, dementia, pathways, what might actually work and help you? So we'll be looking at those specific things. And again, just because one person has it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work as well on another one. Our bodies make a lot of things. Was the one I just saw, phosphatidylserine. Again, your body makes less and less as you get older. But if you supplement with that, my brother-in-law had Alzheimer's, couldn't tell you what year it was, had no concept. He was on 2 months on phosphatidylserine. He could tell you what was on TV last night, what he had for breakfast. It's like he was a new person. But that's one of many pathways. You just can't fix one and expect everything else to stop. So I'm looking right now, starting hopefully in March, and having a webinar series every couple of weeks where I can talk about some of these details. Final slide. I think all of us want to live longer, but we want a good quality of life. And in order to have a good quality of life, we have to be healthy. So even though I might know the causes, the paths of disease, the causes and pathways of aging, I really need to concentrate on what's going to keep me healthy, because that's the biggest thing we have to fight off everything else. But it's like losing weight. The fix doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take some time. And just because you plan on it, okay, I want this done by the end of the year. Well, maybe it's going to be a 2-year program. Maybe some things will work in 6 months and you'll never know because the body has adjusted and you just don't know. So, but whatever you do, it's not, I'm going to work on it for 6 months or a year and then go back to my old lifestyle, because your old lifestyle is what created the problems in the first point. You get cancer. Let's say you get breast cancer. What caused the breast cancer? If you don't change something, chances are that cancer is going to come back in the breast or somewhere else. You have to make a change in order to stop something else from happening down the road. And that's a big deal. So whatever changes you're going to be making, you have to be able to get the mindset to make the change and to keep that change in effect. So again, awareness today, education coming, and please join me next week. I do plan on doing a similar thing today. We talked about cancer, but I want to go into some of the pathways and options for dementia. And so that's my spiel for today. But as always, everything I talked about today, awareness, education. I look forward to you all joining me next week. And as my book proceeds and as my webinars proceed, I'll keep you up to date. So take care, you all. Have fun. Enjoy. Be safe. Bye now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.